Long ago, the land we know as England was not an island. It was connected to Europe by a land bridge. People walked freely across this bridge. They were hunters and gatherers. They followed the animals they needed for food. Then the climate changed. The ice melted and the seas rose. The land bridge disappeared beneath the waves. England became an island, separated from the rest of Europe. This separation had a profound impact. It shaped England's destiny. It made the island a place of both refuge and invasion. It fostered unique cultures and a strong sense of identity. The sea became both a barrier and a highway. It protected England from some threats, but also brought new people and ideas to its shores. This constant interplay between isolation and connection would define England's history. Around 700 BC, a new group of people began to arrive in England. They were the Celts, skilled farmers, metal workers, and warriors. They came from mainland Europe, crossing the sea in boats. The Celts were not a single group, but a collection of tribes. They spread across England, establishing their own territories and customs. These tribes often fought amongst themselves, but they also shared common cultural traits. The Celts were skilled metal workers. They crafted beautiful jewelry and weapons from bronze and iron. They developed new farming techniques which allowed them to cultivate the land more effectively. This led to larger populations and the growth of villages and towns. The Celts left an indelible mark on England. Their languages evolved into Welsh and Cornish. Their artistic styles influenced later cultures. Their love of independence and freedom would continue to resonate throughout English history. The Roman Empire, a mighty force from the south, had conquered much of Europe. Their disciplined legions and advanced technology made them a formidable enemy. In 55 BC, Julius Caesar, the Roman general, led an expedition to Britain. He wanted to claim the island for Rome. Caesar's first invasion was a failure. He faced fierce resistance from the Celtic tribes, but Caesar was determined to conquer Britain. He returned the following year with a larger army and defeated the Celts in a series of battles. However, it was not until 43 AD, under Emperor Claudius, that the Romans truly conquered Britain. They established a province called Britannia and ruled for the next 400 years. Roman rule transformed Britain. They built roads, towns, and cities. They introduced their laws, language and culture. London, originally called Londinium, was founded by the Romans and became a major trading centre. The Romans brought peace and prosperity to Britain, but their rule also led to the suppression of Celtic culture and identity. Section 4, after Rome, Saxons, Angels, and the birth of England. By the 4th century AD, the Roman Empire was weakening. Barbarian tribes threatened its borders. The Roman legions were withdrawn from Britain to defend other parts of the empire. Britain was left vulnerable to attack. Across the North Sea, Germanic tribes saw an opportunity. The Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, skilled warriors and seafarers, began to raid the coasts of Britain. These raids soon turned into full-scale invasions. The Anglo-Saxons pushed westward, driving the native Britons into the western and northern regions. They established their own kingdoms, eventually forming the 7 kingdoms of the Heptarchy: Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, Essex, Kent, Sussex, and Wessex. This period saw the gradual fusion of Anglo-Saxon and Celtic cultures. The Anglo-Saxons, originally pagan, converted to Christianity, which played a crucial role in unifying the different kingdoms. The English language began to take shape, evolving from the Germanic dialects of the Anglo-Saxons. Section 5. Viking fury raids, rule and integration. Just as England was finding its feet, a new threat emerged from the sea: the Vikings. These fierce Scandinavian warriors, hailing from Denmark, Norway and Sweden, terrorized the coasts of Europe with their longships and ruthless raiding parties. The first Viking raids on England began in the late 8th century AD. Monasteries, rich in gold and silver, were easy targets for the Vikings. Towns and villages were plundered and burned. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were ill-prepared for this new enemy. The Vikings were not just raiders, they were also skilled sailors, traders and explorers. They established settlements in England, particularly in the north and east, known as the Danelaw. They intermarried with the local population, and Viking customs and language influenced English culture. The Viking invasions had a profound impact on England. They weakened the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, paving the way for the unification of England under a single ruler. They brought new ideas, technologies and trade routes to England, and they left a lasting legacy on the English language, place names and cultural identity. Gap 3S, Section 6, The Norman Conquest, a new era begins. Following the Viking Age, England faced yet another transformative chapter in its history. In 1066, the Norman Conquest would change the course of the nation forever. Duke William of Normandy, later known as William the Conqueror, claimed the English throne and led an invasion that culminated in the famous Battle of Hastings. King Harold II's forces met William's army, but the Normans emerged victorious, and Harold was killed in battle. With this victory, William established Norman rule over England. The Normans brought with them new governance structures, feudalism, and a different architectural style, best exemplified by the construction of formidable stone castles and grand cathedrals. This era also saw the introduction of the Domesday Book, a comprehensive survey of England's resources and land holdings, which provided invaluable insights into the medieval economy and society. Norman influence extended beyond architecture and governance. The conquest resulted in significant cultural and linguistic shifts. Old English and Norman French blended over time, giving rise to Middle English, the precursor to the modern English language. The introduction of Norman laws, customs and art further enriched the English cultural tapestry. The Norman conquest marked the beginning of a new era, laying the foundation for the development of a unified English identity and a powerful monarchy that would shape the future of the British Isles. It was a period of profound change, forging a legacy that continues to influence England to this day. Gap 3S, Section 7, The Plantagenets, a Dynasty of Kings. Following the transformative Norman conquest, England entered a period dominated by the Plantagenet dynasty, a lineage of kings that would leave an indelible mark on the nation's history. Spanning from the late 12th to the early 15th century, the Plantagenet reign saw England evolve into a formidable European power. Gap 2S. The Plantagenet era began with Henry II, a ruler known for his legal reforms and the establishment of common law, which laid the groundwork for the English legal system. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine expanded English territories and influence across the continent. Gap 2S. The Plantagenets were not only warriors, but also patrons of culture and learning. The reign of Richard the Lionheart, known for his role in the Crusades, and his brother John, infamous for signing the Magna Carta, exemplified the complex and often tumultuous nature of Plantagenet rule. The Magna Carta, signed in 1215, became a cornerstone for constitutional governance, influencing legal systems around the world. Gap 2S. The Plantagenets also faced internal strife, with the Wars of the Roses marking the end of their dynasty. This series of civil wars between the houses of Lancaster and York culminated in the rise of the Tudors, ushering in a new chapter in English history. Gap 2S. Despite the conflict, the Plantagenet period was a time of significant development in art, architecture and literature. Gothic cathedrals soared into the sky, and the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, such as the Canterbury Tales, reflected the evolving English language and culture. Gap 2S. The Plantagenets left a legacy of legal innovation, cultural richness and political evolution. Their impact on the fabric of English society is undeniable, setting the stage for the future of the British monarchy and the nation as a whole. Gap 3S. As the Plantagenet dynasty faded, their contributions endured, shaping the course of English history and the identity of its people. The echoes of their reign continue to resonate, reminding us of an era marked by both grandeur and turmoil. Gap 3S. Join us next time as we delve into the rise of the Tudors and the dawn of the Renaissance in England, a period that would redefine the nation's place in the world. Gap 3S, Section 8, The Tudors, Reformation and Renaissance. As the Plantagenet dynasty waned, a new era emerged with the ascension of the Tudors. This period, spanning from the late 15th to the early 17th century, would see England transform through religious upheaval, artistic flourishing and the consolidation of royal power. Gap 2S. The Tudor era began with Henry V, who established stability after the Wars of the Roses. His reign set the foundation for his son, Henry VIII, one of the most iconic kings in English history. Known for his 6 marriages and dramatic break from the Catholic Church, Henry VIII's quest for a male heir led to the English Reformation. This seismic shift not only altered the religious landscape but also centralized the monarchy's power, paving the way for future rulers. Gap 2S. The reign of Henry's daughter, Elizabeth I, marked a golden age in English history. The Elizabethan era was characterized by a flourishing of the arts, with figures like William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe bringing English literature to new heights. Elizabeth's deft political maneuvering and the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 solidified England's status as a burgeoning global power. Gap 2S. The Tudors were also instrumental in the Age of Exploration. Under their rule, adventurers like Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh expanded England's reach to the New World, laying the groundwork for the British Empire. Gap 2S. However, the Tudor period was not without its challenges. Religious tensions simmered throughout the reigns of Henry VIII's children, leading to periods of persecution and conflict. Yet this era of Reformation also brought about significant advancements in education, science and the arts, reflecting the broader Renaissance movement sweeping across Europe. Gap 2S. The legacy of the Tudors is one of transformation and innovation. Their impact on English society, culture and governance continues to be felt to this day, shaping the nation's identity and its place in the world. Gap 2S. As we conclude our journey through the Tudor dynasty, we prepare to enter the turbulent times of the Stuarts, a period that would challenge the very foundations of the English monarchy and lead to a revolutionary change in the nation's governance. Gap 3S. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we delve into the rise and fall of the Stuart dynasty and the dramatic events that forever altered the course of British history. Gap 3S, Section 9, the Stuart Civil War and Revolution. As the Tudor era came to an end, the Stuart dynasty ascended to the throne, heralding a period of dramatic upheaval and transformation. This chapter in British history, spanning from the early 17th to the late 17th century, is marked by civil strife, political revolution, and the eventual establishment of a constitutional monarchy. Gap 2S. The Stuart period began with the reign of James I, who united the crowns of England and Scotland. Despite his efforts to strengthen royal authority, tensions between the monarchy and Parliament grew, setting the stage for conflict. James's son, Charles I, inherited these tensions, and his attempts to rule without Parliament led to the outbreak of the English Civil War. Gap 2S. The Civil War, fought between the Royalists and the Parliamentarians, was a brutal conflict that tore the nation apart. It culminated in the trial and execution of Charles I in 1649, an unprecedented act that shocked Europe and marked the temporary end of the monarchy. Gap 2S. In the aftermath, England became a republic under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell, who ruled as Lord Protector. This period, known as the Commonwealth, was characterized by strict Puritan rule and significant social and political changes. However, Cromwell's death in 1658 led to instability, and the monarchy was eventually restored in 1660 with the return of Charles II. Gap 2S. The Restoration period brought a sense of normalcy, but the underlying issues between the monarchy and Parliament remained unresolved. Charles II's reign was marked by a cultural revival and the beginnings of the scientific revolution, with figures like Sir Isaac Newton making groundbreaking discoveries. Gap 2S. Yet the tensions resurfaced under James II, whose attempts to promote Catholicism led to the Glorious Revolution of 1688. This bloodless coup saw James II deposed and replaced by William III and Mary II, who agreed to rule as constitutional monarchs, thus limiting the powers of the crown and laying the foundations for modern British democracy. Gap 2S. The Stuart era was a time of profound change and conflict, but it ultimately paved the way for a more balanced system of governance. The struggles and triumphs of this period continue to resonate, shaping the political landscape of Britain and influencing democratic principles around the world. Gap 2S. As we conclude our exploration of the Stuart dynasty, we prepare to enter the Age of Enlightenment, a period that would see the rise of reason, science, and new political philosophies that would transform societies across the globe. Gap 3S, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we delve into the intellectual and cultural revolutions of the Enlightenment and their lasting impact on the modern world. The Gap 3S, Section 10, the Georgians, Enlightenment and Empire. As the Stuart era gave way to the 18th century, Britain entered a new epoch under the rule of the Georgian kings. This period, spanning from 1714 to 1830, was marked by intellectual flourishing, colonial expansion, and significant social transformation. Gap 2S. The Age of Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason, science, and individual rights, profoundly influenced British society. Philosophers like John Locke and David Hume questioned traditional authority and advocated for new political and ethical ideas. These Enlightenment thinkers laid the groundwork for modern democracy and human rights. Gap 2S. The Georgian era also saw Britain become a global empire. The Industrial Revolution began to take root, transforming the economy and the landscape. Innovations in machinery and manufacturing led to unprecedented economic growth and urbanization, but also brought about social challenges, including poor working conditions and the rise of a new urban working class. Gap 2S. Overseas, Britain expanded its influence through trade and colonization. The British East India Company established control over large parts of India, while settlements in North America, the Caribbean, and Australia grew. These colonial ventures were driven by economic interests and often accompanied by conflict and exploitation, leaving a complex legacy that continues to be debated today. Gap 2S. The Georgian period was also a time of cultural and artistic achievement. The works of writers like Jane Austen and poets like William Wordsworth captured the imagination of the public, while advancements in science and medicine improved the quality of life. Figures such as Sir Isaac Newton and Edward Jenner made groundbreaking contributions that shaped our understanding of the world. Gap 2S. However, the era was not without its upheavals. The American Revolution in 1776 challenged British authority and resulted in the loss of the American colonies. At home, social unrest and calls for reform grew louder, leading to movements such as the push for the abolition of the slave trade, which was achieved in 1807. Gap 2S. As the Georgian era drew to a close, Britain stood on the brink of further transformation. The seeds of modernity had been sown, setting the stage for the Victorian Age and the continued evolution of British society and its role on the world stage. Gap 2S. Join us next time as we explore the Victorian era, a time of industrial might, social change, and global influence that would shape the modern world. Gap 3S. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history. Gap 3S, Section 11, The Victorians' Industrial Revolution and Expansion. As the 19th century dawned, Britain entered the Victorian era, a period marked by immense industrial growth, social reform, and global dominance. Named after Queen Victoria, whose reign lasted from 1837 to 1901, this era saw Britain transform into the world's leading industrial and imperial power. Gap 2S, the Industrial Revolution, which had begun in the late 18th century, reached its zenith during the Victorian Age. Innovations in steam power, metallurgy, and textile manufacturing revolutionized production processes. Factories sprang up across the country, and railways connected distant towns and cities, facilitating the movement of goods and people. This industrial boom brought unprecedented wealth and progress, but also highlighted stark social inequalities. Gap 2S. The era was characterized by a series of social reforms aimed at addressing the challenges posed by rapid industrialization. The Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834 sought to address poverty, while the Factory Acts regulated working conditions, particularly for women and children. Visionaries like Charles Dickens used their literary talents to expose the harsh realities of Victorian society, urging for compassion and change. Gap 2S. On the global stage, the British Empire expanded to its greatest extent, encompassing vast territories across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. The phrase "the sun never sets on the British Empire" became a reality as Britain's influence reached every corner of the globe. This expansion was driven by a thirst for resources, markets, and strategic advantage, but it also brought about significant cultural exchanges and, at times, brutal conflicts. Gap 2S. The Victorian period was also a time of scientific and technological innovation. The works of Charles Darwin, whose theory of evolution challenged existing beliefs, and Michael Faraday, whose discoveries in electromagnetism paved the way for modern technology, exemplified the era's spirit of inquiry and discovery. Advances in medicine, public health and sanitation improved life expectancy and quality of life for many. Gap 2S. Yet the era was not without its controversies and challenges. The Irish potato famine of the 1840s exposed the shortcomings of British policies, leading to widespread suffering and emigration. The movement for women's rights gained momentum, with figures like Emmeline Pankhurst advocating for suffrage and equality. Social and political tensions simmered beneath the surface, setting the stage for future changes. Gap 2S. As the Victorian era drew to a close, Britain stood at the height of its power, but also on the cusp of significant social and political transformations. The legacy of this period, with its blend of progress and paradox, continues to shape the modern world. Gap 2S. Join us next time as we delve into the turbulent 20th century, a time of world wars, technological leaps, and profound societal shifts that would redefine the global order. Gap 3S. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history. Gap 3S, Section 12. The World Wars, Conflict and Change. As the 20th century dawned, Britain, like much of the world, would face unprecedented challenges and transformations. Two global conflicts would reshape nations, societies, and international relations in ways that still reverberate today. Gap 2S. The First World War, also known as the Great War, erupted in 1914 and lasted until 1918. It was a conflict of staggering scale and brutality, involving trench warfare, new military technologies, and massive casualties. Britain, part of the Allied powers, mobilized millions of soldiers and resources. The war's end saw the fall of empires, redrawn borders, and the seeds of future conflict sown within the Treaty of Versailles. Gap 2S. The interwar period was marked by economic upheaval, social change, and political instability. The Great Depression of the 1930s led to widespread unemployment and hardship, while the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe set the stage for another devastating conflict. Gap 2S. World War II began in 1939, following the aggressive expansion of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler. This conflict was even more global in scope, involving theatres of war in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Britain, led by Prime Minister Winston Churchill, played a crucial role in the Allied effort, enduring the Blitz and contributing to major campaigns such as D-Day. The war culminated in the defeat of the Axis powers in 1945, but at a tremendous cost. Millions of lives lost, cities devastated, and the horrors of the Holocaust revealed. Gap 2S. The aftermath of World War II saw the emergence of a new world order. The United Nations was established to promote peace and cooperation, and the Cold War began, dividing the world into Eastern and Western blocs. Britain, though victorious, faced the decline of its imperial power, leading to the decolonization movement and the independence of many former colonies. Gap 2S. The wars also brought significant social changes. Women who had taken on new roles during the conflicts began to demand greater rights and opportunities, leading to advances in gender equality. The experiences of war veterans and the horrors witnessed led to a renewed commitment to human rights and social welfare. Gap 2S. As the 20th century progressed, Britain would continue to navigate its role in a rapidly changing world, marked by technological advancements, cultural shifts, and the ongoing quest for peace and prosperity. Gap 2S. Join us next time as we explore the post-war era, a time of rebuilding, innovation, and the continued struggle for a better future. Gap 3S. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history. Gap 3S, Section 13, Modern Britain, a New Chapter. As the dust settled from the tumultuous first half of the 20th century, Britain embarked on a journey of recovery, transformation, and redefinition. The post-war era was a time of profound change, marked by a collective effort to rebuild and innovate. Gap 2S. The 1950s and 1960s saw Britain embracing modernization. The National Health Service was established, providing free healthcare to all citizens and becoming a cornerstone of the welfare state. Meanwhile, the economy gradually recovered, spurred by technological advancements and a focus on social welfare. Gap 2S. The cultural landscape also shifted dramatically. The swinging 60s brought a wave of cultural revolution, with Britain at the forefront of music, fashion, and youth culture. Icons like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones became global phenomena, symbolizing the country's creative resurgence. Gap 2S. The late 20th century presented both opportunities and challenges. Britain navigated decolonization, granting independence to many of its former colonies and redefining its role on the global stage. The 1970s and 1980s were marked by economic struggles, political shifts and social upheavals. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's policies sparked both economic growth and significant controversy, reshaping the nation's political and economic landscape. Gap 2S. Entering the 21st century, Britain continued to evolve. The turn of the millennium saw technological advancements transforming every aspect of life, from communication to industry. The country also faced new challenges, such as the 2008 financial crisis and the ongoing debates over its role in the European Union. Gap 2S. In 2016, the Brexit referendum marked a pivotal moment in modern British history, leading to the UK's decision to leave the EU. This move sparked intense political debate and significant changes in the nation's relationship with its European neighbours and the world. Gap 2S. Throughout these decades, Britain has remained a dynamic and influential player on the global stage. The nation's commitment to innovation, cultural expression, and social progress continues to shape its identity and its future. Gap 2S. As we look forward, Britain faces new challenges and opportunities in a rapidly changing world. The story of modern Britain is one of resilience, adaptation, and the ongoing quest to build a better future for all its citizens. Gap 2S. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the past, present, and future. Gap 3S.